Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I met a guy years ago in Nepal, actually. The first time, well, I've only been in Nepal once. The only time I've ever been in Nepal, which was like 89, I guess, or 87, somewhere in there. Anyway, he was, I met him, I was in Pokhara in western Nepal, and I went into this cafe that I used to hang out in, and there was this dude there. He was probably in his 50s. He had this big mustache. He's a white guy, tattoos all over and stuff, kind of gnarly looking dude. And, he said hello, and I sat down. We started talking. And then I ended up hanging out with him every morning for like 2 weeks and got to know him quite well. His name was Captain Dan. At least that's how I remember him.
Right on.
Captain Dan. And he was married to an Indian woman named Shaku. Captain Dan and Shaku. Wow. Anyway, Captain Dan, sort of similar situation to that. Captain Dan's story was that he was from a family of mercenaries. And
Crazy.
yeah, he had sort of, his father's grandfather, all these famous British soldiers. And Captain Dan joined the army and fought, then later fought as a private soldier and for hire. And he was in Northern Ireland and Rhodesia. This is in the 70s, I guess, and then or 60s. And then he was hired by the Americans or some American company to fly a helicopter in Vietnam. So he's flying this helicopter in Vietnam, like shooting people from the air. And one night he took some acid and had this like mind-blowing trip, wandered off, found the helicopter while he's still high, jumps in the helicopter, flies into Cambodia.
Crazy.
As far as he can get with whatever fuel's in it.
Yeah.
Ditches the helicopter and starts walking. He's like, I can't do it anymore. I'm fucking done, right?
Yeah.
So he walks, he gets into Thailand, and this is Vietnam War raging, so it's early 70s at the latest. And somehow he gets to India. And in the meantime, he's written to his family, and they know what he's done. They've disowned him. They don't want to hear from him ever again.
Right.
He's shamed the family.
Right.
The Americans are looking for him because he stole a fucking helicopter and deserted.
Yeah,
exactly,
deserter.
So he's like fucked in every possible way you can be fucked, but he's alive. And he gets to India, and he's got tattoos. Like I remember he had love on one, hand and hate on the other, and his fist, and he's got like cobras and shit. And all this.
Right.
And so he gets to India, and he doesn't have a job, doesn't know people, is fucked, but it's like hippie 70s, scene. And he ends up, it turns out that India makes more movies than any place, right? Bollywood and all that. So in these Indian movies, often there's a scary, horrible white guy who chases the girls around. He's like the rapist who jumps out of the bushes, right? Which is a reference to the British colonialism and all that, right?
And then the hero punches him in the face,
exactly.
and then it breaks out the
and
song
then they all
and dance.
exactly. Right? So Captain Dan ends up getting a gig in a movie.
Right on.
And he's so fucking scary looking that he gradually becomes this star of Indian cinema. Right. So he's like recovered his life. Now he's making bank, and he's on, in all these movies, and everyone recognizes him.
Awesome.
So he goes to dinner one night at the home of a brigadier general of the Indian Army, right? Some real big shot. So he's there. I guess it's the crew or the stars of the cast of a movie or whatever. And the general's daughter walks in. And he looks at her. She's like 19, I think.
Yeah.
And they fall in love.
Yeah.
Right? Boom. They're in love. So after the dinner, he sneaks back onto the property, and he's like tossing pebbles to her window, and she crawls out and all this stuff. So they decide they're going to get married. Now, a white dude and an Indian woman, especially upper class, forget about it.
Game over.
So, but she says, fuck it. I don't care. I'm running away with him. She runs away with him. Her family disowns her. He gets kicked out. He can't work anymore because now he's persona non grata in India. And they end up wandering India together, the two of them, for about 7 years when I met them.
Wow.
And they were in Nepal. There was some film shooting in Nepal. He was trying to get a job. It was. So he tells me all these amazing stories. So the UPS guy just interrupted.
Yeah. Right at the
fucking UPS
climax of your story.
Anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? So he was in Nepal, and
He was in a movie
this is
shoot,
amazing.
right?
Yeah. So when I met him, things were kind of on a downswing.
Right.
But he told me all these amazing stories. Now I'm thinking, like, maybe 10% of this bullshit's true,
Yeah.
right? Because he's a little British dude,
Yeah.
likes to talk, and he was cool, he was charming, but I did get to know Shaku, and she never contradicted anything, and when he was telling the story, she was never looking at him like, "Come on,
Yeah,
that's bullshit."
exactly.
I remember they told me the story about the two of them hiking in the Himalayas. They just wandered from village to village,
Yeah.
and all these crazy, so they're walking through the Himalayas and in Kashmir, and a snowstorm blows up out of nowhere. So they find like a little cave, and they hunker down in this cave, and it just keeps snowing and snowing and snowing. They build a little fire, and so they're surviving. But 4 days later,
Yeah.
they're still there, and
Crazy.
they're starving, and they decide they have to eat their dog.
Oh, snap. Okay.
And he can't do it. The big soldier boy, he can't do it. So the
Yeah.
Indian woman kills
Must have
the
just
dog.
went right for it. Yeah.
She kills the fucking dog and,
Yeah.
and roasts it, And so I remember him telling me that story and her looking in the fire, and it's like, that was true,
Yeah.
He told me another story about when they were going through a village, and they were walking along a river, and the people attacked them and started throwing stones at them because there are all these stones along
Yeah.
the riverbank.
Why'd they attack him? Because they knew who they were?
No, because it's a Indian woman with a white guy.
Oh, geez. Okay.
She's a whore. She's
Yeah.
disrespecting the culture and everything. I got that all the time.
Did you?
Traveling with Casilda in
Really?
India. Yeah. But anyway, so they threw stones at him, and they only escaped by jumping in the river and floating down, and, getting away that way. So they went to the police. Now, Shaku is essentially homeless, but remember, she's the daughter of a general. So
Yeah.
her accent, her bearing, everything about her says upper class.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know people. So it's got to be confusing for authorities because,
Yeah.
okay, you're like a homeless wanderer, but everything I'm hearing tells me like you're a general's daughter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, they go to the police. She fucking lays into the police, tells them what happened. And the police take them back to the village. They round up all the people in the village, and they say, well, should we find them, or who should we take to prison? What should we do? And she says, no, get them all in a line. I want every person in this village to kiss our feet.
Oh, jeez.
So the two
they
of
do
them
it?
sit there. Yeah, the
Jeez.
two of them sit there.
That's
and every
awesome.
person in the village has to file by and kiss their feet.
That's crazy. That's a bold move.
Yeah, and it's a move that makes sense in the culture, right? But if you're an outsider, you'd never think of that.
No, not at all.